Good morning, everybody. Welcome in to a Week 11 edition of the Establish the Run First Look Show. I'm Gary Hartman. I'll be taking you on a quick first glance journey at the upcoming DraftKings NFL slate, Week 11, as we're halfway through the season, already midway through November. And yeah, purpose of the show, as always, is to take a 3,000-foot view, macro view of the coming slate, get ourselves in the mindset of transitioning from one week to another, and just start thinking about what kind of slates, what kind of plays, what kind of stacks, what kind of games make sense to attack in the coming week. So we go quickly, we go position by position here, and we'll jump right in. A couple things off the top. We're back to an 11-game slate here in Week 11 when we were on 10-game slates for the previous 2 weeks. So smallest slates of the season were in weeks 9 and 10. We're back up to 11 games. Teams off the slate this week. Primetime, Titans and Packers on Thursday night. So no Derrick Henry. That's pretty much the main consequence there. No Aaron Jones and the Packers guys as well. Chiefs Chargers Sunday night. I think that was actually flex. I think that was originally going to be the Bengals game or something, like Bengals Steelers. So that's Chiefs Chargers now, though, Sunday night. So obviously another week. We had Mahomes with a quick appearance on the main slate this past week and back off it this week. Chargers coming off the bye. Herbert, Eckler, all off the slate there. So that's something to consider. And then, or they were not on bye. Were they on prime time as well? Sorry about that. Chargers. Okay. Either way, not on the slate. 49ers, Cardinals are a Monday night. So no Christian McCaffrey, no dealing with fake sharp Cliff Kingsbury this week. So those are the teams on a bye. And then, on prime time. And then your bye weeks this week, we have the Miami Dolphins, which definitely is consequential for DFS purposes. Obviously, that prolific passing game of Mike McDaniels and the Miami Dolphins. So no Tyreek Hill, Waddle, Tua. The Seattle Seahawks also off the slated team that we've been using for DFS purposes. The Tampa Bay Bucks also on a bye week, coming off the Germany game, and so are the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, ETN, who's been a very popular play, not on this slate. So definitely some teams and some players that have been big DFS decision points that are off this slate. It's an interesting one looking at it. We'll dive into quarterback here in a second. Just one more macro piece here. The Bears-Falcons is the only 50-point game on this slate. That's a 50.5 total, with the Atlanta being a 3-point favorite. So anytime you get a close spread with a high total, that's going to be a game that's going to be quite popular to attack. After that, the Vikings-Cowboys is the next highest at 47.5. And we have a couple in like the 44 through 46 range. And it's kind of on the lower end for these 11 games. So nothing besides that Bears-Falcons over 50 points. But there are some team totals that are pretty high that we'll talk about here as we dive into quarterbacks. So let's talk about quarterback here. I look at these first 5 names: Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields, Joe Burrow. And I'm thinking, okay, this is now a spend-up week at quarterback. Now, it's not a definite situation, but we do have Justin Fields that is now up into this upper echelon. He was in the 5Ks just 2 weeks ago, was 6,500 this past week, put up another 40-point performance, did Justin Fields. Against Detroit this week. Only threw the ball 20 times, only threw the ball 167 yards. Did get 2 passing touchdowns though, but once again, 147 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, and the guy's unbelievable. So now he's priced up to where he should be, 7,600. The thing is, this is a great Justin Fields matchup. We got Atlanta, team we've been picking on all year. We're in a dome here. This is a great spot. So Fields is priced where he should be. I have no problem going there. The 3 guys above him have the 3 highest team totals on the slate. So we got the Bills with Josh Allen at 27.5. Now, there might be something going on with that elbow for sure. Definitely doesn't look totally like himself, but the guy still goes out after being truly, truly questionable. Like, we didn't know if he was going to play up until 30 minutes before the game on Sunday. Still goes out, throws 43 times, 330 yards. Was not very efficient. Did throw some bad picks. Still got his 84 yards on the ground and still got his 26 DraftKings points. Now, 8,500. Now they're at home against Cleveland. This seems like a very good Josh Allen spot. I will be going there. I'm not going to worry too much about the injury. In that spot, the Bills have a 27.5 implied team total, according to DraftKings Sportsbook. That is tied for the highest in the week right now. The Eagles actually, at least on DraftKings, have not come out yet. So let's talk about them quickly. They played last night, Monday night. The last undefeated team, no longer undefeated, as Washington beats Philadelphia in Philadelphia last night, making the NFC East picture that much cloudier, with everyone overachieving, including Washington now. And, they're going into Indianapolis for Jeff Saturday's second game as coach, and obviously coming off that win. Matchup's pretty good here. We don't have the team total yet, but I would imagine they're also going to be pretty high. So he's going to be in play. That's a 44.5 game total, though. But then you got Lamar. And, I talk about liking these spots. So the Ravens are 12-point favorites at home against the Carolina Panthers, coming off of a bye. And the Ravens are tied with the Bills for the highest team total, 27.5. Now, Lamar's pass catching core is in flux, to say the least. No Bateman, obviously, I think, for the rest of the year. And Mark Andrews, we'll see on what's going on with him. But, either way, I think Lamar is very much in play here as a 12-point favorite with a 27.5 implied team total. If they're going to cover that spread, that's going to be at Lamar. So I love these top four guys. I also really like Joe Burrow coming off the bye. We're obviously still without Jamar Chase, but and this is a low total, 41.5. That's something to be a little bit concerned about. The game's in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh can maybe get some pressure on Burrow. We're still a little bit worried about the Cincinnati offensive line, but coming off the bye, 6,800, 23.5 team total for Cincinnati, so only kind of middling. But the matchup's really good. The Pittsburgh's been getting crushed through the air all year. He had 26 points in week 1 against this team in a loss. I think they're coming out looking for revenge here off the bye. So I think Burrow is a good spot. So now you have your top 5 quarterbacks that are all really good spend up options. Then you have the next game of the week that we're looking to attack after Bears Falcons, and that's Cowboys Vikings. That's a 47.5 with only a 1-point spread. Okay. So then you have your next two guys as Dak and Cousins. I think I prefer to go to the Dak side of this. We just saw Josh Allen be able to pass on this team. Obviously, I think you'd rather attack that Dallas pass game with kind of what the Dallas pass rush is on the other side. And Cousins just hasn't really shown the ceiling. So you can really go to Dak stacks with Justin Jefferson bringbacks or Hawkinson or something like that. So you have your top 6 guys that are all in play. So I would be really surprised if one of those 6 guys wasn't necessarily optimal this week. However, there are some spend down options. Russell Wilson does look like he's in a good spot. They're at home against Las Vegas. Las Vegas stinks. There's no doubt about that. It's a no for me, dog, on Russell Wilson, though. I just look at these box scores. It's a no for me. If I am spending down, I want it to be to Daniel Jones at home against the Detroit Lions, right? This is pretty obvious spot. 5,700, sub 6K. Worst defense in the league. The Lions are 32nd against DraftKings fantasy points for quarterbacks. We saw, Daniel Jones, he does have a floor. We saw it once again this week, 18 points. Solid floor. In cash, I think he'll be in consideration, depending on how things will be shaking out. I don't know what cash games are going to look like this week, but at home against the Lions, we've seen this. We've seen the ceilings get there. We know the legs can get there. This would be the spend down option of choice for me this week. So I'm looking at these top 6 guys, and then I'm looking at Daniel Jones. I think Mariota on the other side of that Bears matchup with that 50-point total will also be a guy that cash game guys will be looking at if you really need salary saving. I think he's fine for a floor as well, but I can't imagine not wanting to go to Fields on the other side. I get the $2,000 in price difference here, but I don't really care. I don't trust America's Mariota ceiling, even at home, even in a good matchup. I have to think a little bit more about it. Maybe I'd hand build a couple. I don't think he will be making my player pool for GPP, MME stuff this week. So it's a pretty clear, and I've been talking about it a lot, how I like spending up a quarterback. I like taking those surefire ceiling spots. And I think all of the top 5, maybe 6 guys have that this week. And then you got Daniel Jones down there. It's a pretty clear quarterback spot to me. I don't think there's no reason to get cute with Derek Carr and any of these guys under Mariota. No reason to get cute, in my opinion. So that's quarterback. At least it's kind of a clear spot. But in general, DraftKings still very tight pricing-wise this week, right? So getting up to those quarterbacks might be tough. We'll talk about why it's tight as we go to some of the other positions here. So let's talk about running back. Saquon, coming off the nut matchup in Houston, gets almost close to another fantastic matchup here with Detroit. You compare him with Daniel Jones, no problem. I always talk about that. Only 1 target, very surprising this past week. I expect him to be more involved in the pass game here in week 11. But the role is just elite, man. 35 carries. They're going to continue to run through him. The only way they can set up the passes is getting involved. Saquon with 25 plus carries on the ground. We saw it work with the Darius Slayton touchdown, the play action, passing, working for the Giants because of what Saquon can do. Saquon can take something to the house. This was a fine game out of Saquon, 150 yards and the touchdown. But 26 points when he was 8,600 wasn't going to really get it done in tournaments. I still think that 30-plus point ceilings here this week, if you can afford it, Saquon is the clear, in my opinion, best running back play on the slate. couple guys that'll probably be low owned here right underneath him. Nick Chubb, floor once again, another 5.7 yards a carry. They had to abandon the run because they got down big to Miami. I worry that the same thing might happen here in Buffalo, especially with Buffalo coming off that loss. They're going to be desperate for a win. They can't go to 6-4. But if you want to go Chubb, I don't mind him in correlation with Buffalo stuff. We know he's kind of a beast. He's his own thing, is Nick Chubb. Dalvin Cook also probably won't garner much ownership here. He is someone that looked really good, probably had his best game of the season actually here in week 10 at Buffalo. Now they're back home against Dallas. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon were able to run on the Cowboys a little bit this past week. I think this is also another really good spot and maybe one of the top games to attack, maybe the second best game to attack in that 4:00 window, Dallas, Minnesota. Dalvin, I think he's really good in correlation. I think he's good off in mini stacks with Dallas stuff. And I really don't think he's going to be very owned because of the AK tag. We don't have ownership projections yet. We'll see. But I think that's kind of a sneaky tournament play. So I think Dalvin Cook's interesting. Jonathan Taylor, really good signs for him in Jeff Saturday's first game, the 22 carries, 150 yards almost on the ground, touchdown. They were running through him, 6.7 yards per carry. I think it really helps Matt Ryan being back in the fold. That their vertical game is a little bit more of a threat, opens up the stuff for Jonathan Taylor. They don't have to stack the box. There's also no competition with Sam Ehlinger for rushing yards. So that's all very good. I don't like this matchup. At home against Philadelphia, it's fine. It's not bad. If you are going to attack Philadelphia, it is on the ground. So I think this is okay. 7,800, good stuff overall. It's just, I shouldn't say I don't like it. I don't love the matchup. It's okay. So he's kind of in this group that I call like under this Cook page that are good spots, good plays, but don't jump off the page. And Kamara is another one of those. At home against the Rams, we saw James Conner have success this past week. That was really a lot of it in the red zone, though, but did dominate the workload. They're at home. The Rams are kind of reeling. Obviously, no Cooper Kupp on the other side. We'll talk about that in a second. I think he's an okay play. 7,600. Obviously, we know the rolls through the air. Let's see who they start at quarterback. I don't know if they're going to bring Jameis Winston back. If it does, it's a big hit to Kamara's upside, though. Josh Jacobs was one of my favorite plays on the slate this past week. And luckily, his pass game role did get him to this 22.6 point floor, 8 targets in the air, 6 catches. Vegas is a mess. This is another game. Now, Denver's defense is pretty good, but another game that I would expect Vegas, they're desperate. They might be playing from behind. I think his pass game role, once again, will be good. I do worry about the efficiency on the ground for what we've seen in his last 3 games. So another person right in that middle of that spot. Mixon, another guy. Role is elite. We love Joe Mixon's role. I don't mind pairing Joe Mixon with Joe Burrow. I don't mind pairing Joe Mixon in correlation stuff in this game. However, if I'm attacking Cincinnati, I'd rather do it through the air. Now, he's part of that, so I'm not off Joe Mixon. I'm sorry, if I'm attacking Pittsburgh, I'd rather do it through the air. So, he's a part of that. So I'm not off Joe Mixon, but he is someone that I think is just okay this week, right? This kind of group of like these 7K, 6K guys that are just okay. Miles Sanders coming off last night, now priced up to 6,900. I think they probably all thought he must have been coming off a big game on Monday night, which he was not. Still like the role. Not doing anything in the pass game the last 3 weeks. The touchdown stuff has been good this year. At 6,900, it's a tough thing to get to. I don't think many people are going to be playing him. So in that case, I think he's all right. Ramondre against the Jets, I think this is an okay spot. Jets defense, though, definitely pretty good. There's no doubt about it. This is like the lowest game total of the week. Two of the lowest implied team totals of the week. That could be a good thing setting up for Ramondre. A lot of keeping the ball on the ground on both sides of this. Take it for what it's worth. I don't think Ramondre is bad at 6,700. I do think Dameon Pierce isn't the best, though, at 6,500. Now, I don't think it's bad. We know they want to run through him. He is 5 yards a carry each of the last 2 games. But this Washington run D, actually way better than either of these last 2 matchups. Washington, front 7, really where they shine. You attack Washington through the air. They've been doing that all year. You see the 6th in DraftKings points against running backs. Not the best spot. Pollard totally dependent on Minnesota. On Zeke's availability. If he's not playing, he'll once again very much be in play and probably be pretty chalky. Somebody that will probably also be very chalky. And now as we kind of go to our next tier of place, it's the spend down option. So there's a couple good spend up options, kind of this like big group in the middle that I would expect somebody to get there, but there's kind of red flags on every single person in this group. And then you go to under Pollard and you have this spend down option group that will probably go draw a lot of ownership because of how tight DraftKings pricing is again. And they all have pretty good spots. So Patterson's the first of those. Really good spot here at home against the Bears. Didn't get much done in his return or second game back this past week, but I expect more usage, more opportunity. We know the goal line work should be there for CPAT. some more work through the air in this Atlanta game that does have the highest total in the week. Makes a lot of sense in correlation, makes a lot of sense as a one-off play. He's going to be very popular. I'm sure it'll be a cash option, but it's hard not to look at Cordarrelle Patterson and like that. David Montgomery, right underneath him, also might be in a really good play in the same exact game. Pivot to Fields, pivot to other things in this game. If Khalil Herbert is out, which he hurt his hip in this past game, I think Montgomery, though, will be quite popular. If he's in, I wonder if you can get Montgomery as a little bit of a discount in a good spot here. I like Montgomery either way. You have the two Lions guys against the Giants. Those guys are fine. It's hard to invest in either of them as a ceiling case right now with Swift's role very slowly ramping up, but still not getting nearly enough for what you need to win in a tournament. And Jamal Williams just being what it is. So Zeke, as we mentioned, will wait. Kenyon Drake's a really good play here. You're sub 6K against Carolina at home, 12-point spread. Game script should be in his favor. Role is very clearly in his favor. Look at that, 24 carries. He's dominating snap share in that backfield. Not expensive enough for what the role is on this offense with the highest implied team total of the week. Kenyon Drake's a play. So is Deontay Foreman on the other side of that game, 5,900. Devin Singletary, also very much in play, 5,800, found the end zone twice. He's still the clear lead back. I expect Nyheim Hines to eventually start playing a little bit more for this Buffalo team, but sub 6K, he's going to be one of those guys. And then you got the Washington guys, Gibson, and even, I don't like it because I don't think he's a good NFL player, as much as great story, excellent story. Might be one of the worst pure running backs in the league if you look at this efficiency. But again, who have we been attacking through on the ground all season? Houston. So Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson, both to me, should make a player pool this week. And so now you got all these spend down options that are interesting, right? Kareem Hunt game script might be in his favor. He's only 5,100 against Buffalo. We've seen him be viable this year, 23 points. He's still on the team. They didn't trade him at the deadline. Only 5,100 makes sense as a bring back, in my opinion, on Allen stacks. And then even Jaylen Warren, 4,900. There was talk last week that they might be using him more than Najee Harris. And I think that talk's only going to continue to go. Najee Harris, not good running back. Jaylen Warren, good running back. That's my analysis there. Only 4,900 if you need the salary saving. If you want to pivot to all these other cheap guys that are going to be popular, there you go. There's an option for you. So, I think it's cheap, and then it's real spend up with like Saquon and this mid-tier. I'm curious if it falls through the cracks a little bit. Keep an eye on ownership. It'll be very interesting to see. All right, receiver. Jefferson, second highest team total of this week, as we mentioned, only a 1-point spread. I think we're going to be attacking this game in a lot of different ways. I'm not really scared of Trayvon Diggs one-on-one defense. Also, Justin Jefferson proved this past week that he is completely matchup proof. Guy's an absolute beast. 9,100. I think people will go to him. There's no Cooper Kupp this week, as he's going to miss multiple weeks with a high ankle sprain. So Jefferson, good play. In one of the games we want to attack. Adams, though, I don't love Devontae Adams as much this week, coming off 2 30-point performances. Maybe they're playing from behind, but this is not the matchup to attack. Pat Surtain, one of the best cornerbacks in football. This is in Denver. Denver's got a good defense, particularly has a good pass defense. I think they're going to game plans to take Devontae Adams out of this game. I'm kind of off Devontae this week. In on Stephon Diggs still, though. 16 targets this past week. Once again, at home, Buffalo. Want him in all the Allen stuff. He's one of the best receivers in football. A.J. Brown. Bounce back. Adams had this big game against them this past week. Did get banged up, missed some time in the game last night, short week. But I think A.J. Brown might fall through the cracks a little bit, same way Devontae Adams did in this exact same matchup, and who had 14 targets, 9 catches. If they can kind of take that Adams blueprint, use him in the middle of the field, then, middle of the field, take the shots. I think A.J. Brown's interesting this week. And CeeDee Lamb certainly is. CeeDee Lamb, I'm a little worried about CeeDee Lamb coming off ceiling game to repeat it. 41 points. Finally saw that kind of explosion game out of CeeDee Lamb that we knew he could have. But this is definitely a spot to attack. We saw Diggs get his 16 targets against the same Minnesota defense. We're going to be attacking that game. No problem. End of the 7K, guys. I'm on Ross St. Brown. I think he's fine against the Giants. I'm sure he'll get a good amount of Adoree Jackson coverage. He's been pretty good. But I'm on Ross. Volume's really, really strong. This game's got a 46.5 game total. It's actually his third highest on the week. So especially if you're using Daniel Jones stuff, if you're using Saquon stuff, if you want mini correlation, if you want to bring back, I think Amon-Ra is going to be in play once again. Really like T. Higgins at 7,100, actually the cover boy of this video. So number one wide receivers have really had their way with the Steelers. They've been crushed by opposing receivers. Still no Jamar Chase. Cincinnati coming off a bye. I like going into Mixon. I like going into this game a little bit. I think it's going to be a little bit contrarian. A.J. Brown went off against this team. The Dolphins guys went off against this team. Stephon Diggs went off against the Steelers team. The Steelers have given up a lot of big games to number one wide receivers. T. Higgins can definitely fit that mold. We're waiting also for one of these huge games out of him in the non-Jamar Jamar Chase era here. I think this is a T. Higgins week. I really do. Love T. Higgins for tournaments. Olave against the Rams, sure, he's fine. Boyd on the other side of that Higgins thing. Much prefer Higgins in the exact same spot, but Burrow double makes sense. I think Boyd's also good given that matchup. Amari, I like on the other side of Buffalo stuff. I want a correlation there, though, with most of these Cleveland guys this week. I don't need him in Allen lineups, but if I'm playing Amari Cooper, probably want him with a Bill on the other side. Gabe Davis, numbers look a little better than they do because of the catch that wasn't. But we know he's always going to be in play for tournaments. The guy is ADOT's fantastic. The deep threat's always there for him. The matchup doesn't scare you. I think he's in play. I don't like Devonta Smith as much as I like AJ Brown this past week coming off the Devonta Smith game. Usually kind of goes back and forth. Prefer the alpha in that matchup. Overall, Indy's pass defense has been good. Pittman, I only like really on the other side of Hurts stuff or Eagles stuff, but McLaurin had unlikely success against this Eagles team last night and their outside receivers. Maybe he could do it as well. Obviously, Matt Ryan certainly helps to have him back. I think Sutton's a really good play. No Jerry Jeudy looking likely this week in Vegas. Only 6K. I like Sutton a lot for tournaments. McLaurin, same thing against Houston. Makes plenty of sense. DJ Moore on the other side of Baltimore stuff. I'm looking for correlation with a lot of these guys. So I'm going to be attacking these high-end games. If I'm going to be going into a lot of these guys, I want correlation. Obviously, a 5,700 DJ Moore in positive game script for them, meaning coming from playing from behind, is going to be in play as a one-off play. But I like him in correlation particularly. I think Judy's going to end up missing, right? It's not expected to miss extended time, but I think he's going to miss this week. No Cooper Kupp will set up Allen Robinson for a true wide receiver one role. Yeah, I think that could be in play. I mean, it's not good. I think the Rams are bad. We'll see what happens with Stafford. After that, you got Mooney in the great matchup against the Falcons. He's good in one-off plays, good in field stuff. He's good in Mariota stuff. If you go there, he's good on the other side of Patterson. He's a good play. Brandon Cooks came back, did get 7 targets. We haven't seen a Brandon Cooks game this year. His highest game was 18.7. But I mentioned you don't attack Washington on the ground, attack him through the air. He can make a pull at 5,400. He's cheap. Keep going down here. Pickens, I think the Pittsburgh guys would really just operate as bringbacks in any Burrow stuff. And then you got some 5K guys that are interesting. Gallup, Duvernay, Slayton, all very interesting. Slayton, really clearly the Giants' #1 wide receiver right now. If you're going to play into dimes, great matchup with Detroit. Sub 5K, go check out our cheap wide receiver volume card article. Half off, we have our discounted premium package stuff for ETR right now that we're halfway through the year. Can't recommend it enough. We'll cover all the good sub 5K plays in that article this week. Tight end. No Kelsey, no Kittle, and no Waller. So 3 of our top 4 or 5 fantasy tight ends off this slate. Mark Andrews on it. Or is he going to play? I think 3 chinks are trending in the right direction for Mark Andrews. I do like Mark Andrews a lot if he does play, but keep an eye on it. Goddard found the end zone last night, got banged up. I think came back in. He's fine. Hawkinson, definitely like Hawkinson. He's going to be a much cheaper bring back option in Dallas stacks or even in mini correlations than Justin Jefferson will. So in lineups that you can't get to Justin Jefferson, I think TJ Hawkinson makes sense when you're attacking this game. Look at how he's been used in his first 2 games so far for the Vikings. 19 targets in his first 2 games. Got to like that for TJ Hawkinson. Kyle Pitts in that game we're attacking. I think he's going to be a good play. The targets have been there his last 3 games. He did have that one 5 for 80 in a touchdown game. It's hard to trust that Atlanta pass game, but 4,400 Kyle Pitts in the best game of the week from a game total standpoint, at least, is going to be in play. Schultz with Dak is just a completely different player. Did get there this past week, the 17 points, 654, and a touchdown. The targets have been there. Good play for Dalton Schultz as well. Pat Freiermuth, bring back in Burrow stuff. Komet, I think this isn't a fluke. I mean, since this Bears offense has turned into what it is, which is completely different over the last 3 or 4 weeks than it was for the last 5 to 7, Komet is a big part of that. He's dangerous in the as a touchdown threat. Obviously, 5 touchdowns over his last 3 games. 20, been the optimal tight end in each of those last 2 weeks, paired with Justin Fields in each of those last 2 weeks. I think you do the same thing once again. Komet absolutely in play in a very good matchup here. Higbee should benefit from no Cup with the volume of it all. I actually haven't played much Tyler Higbee this year because the floor's been there, but the ceiling hasn't. That might change this week if Stafford's back. Dolchich, very curious to see if Dolchich falls through the cracks because Dolchich was ridiculous chalk this past week, 28%. I don't call that good chalk, but what I do call was the role being still good. Go check out Adam Levitan's tweet from either yesterday or early today, where he broke down Dolchich's role. Still very much the prime tight end there in Denver. Matchup's pretty good. And because he failed everyone last week, only 1 for 11, wonder if he falls through the cracks. Spend down options. Moreau's priced up now a little bit, but we still don't have Darren Waller. His role always remains really strong from a floor perspective, but I think that's more of a cash play to me. Likely will be in play if no Mark Andrews. And then Conklin's quietly one of the top 10 scoring tight ends in fantasy this year. Off the bye against the Patriots. Don't mind this matchup. Patriots have been not so great against tight ends. So there's an option there. Ashton hates NFL at this point, so take that for what it will. It's been a crazy year. And then, you'll have your punt tight ends, maybe some of the Giants guys, maybe Kylen Granson on the Colts. Keep an eye on all of our stuff this week. We'll talk about guys that might be in play as punt. Tight end's kind of like one of these weeks where usually I try to keep my tight end pool kind of thin, but this looks like a week where you can make an argument for most of these guys from 3K to 6K here. So I think my tight end pool will be a little bit wider this week. All right, went a little bit longer than normal, 25 minutes here, but interesting week. I think it's kind of straightforward while having these mid-tier guys at every position that might fall through the cracks a little bit. So keep an eye on ownership. Curious where everything falls in this week. Kind of like this week, it's interesting. Pricing still tight, but it'll be an interesting week. I think last week was the hardest week of the season, which made it a fascinating week for people like us in the industry. I thought I did pretty well last week. We'll see how this coming week goes. If you're not already subscribed to everything we have going on at ETR, can't recommend it enough. ETR NFL, I mentioned the discounted packages. Go check out it on establishtheRun.com. We got you covered for all things DFS, all things season long. ETR NBA, something that I'm very proud of being a part of, is also in full swing. We're crushing the props. We're crushing our ETR NBA DFS. A couple of our guys on our internal team won some small tournaments last night, crushing it over there. Go check that out. Established on NBA. And if you can, please do hit a like button, subscribe on this video, where I have a goal of 30,000 YouTube subscribers by the end of the season. Would love to get there. Please do tell a friend, pass it around. At the very least, give us a like and a subscribe, and tell me who you like this week in week 11 in the comments. I think it's an interesting week for sure. And I wish you all the best of luck this week. Hopefully let's all win a lot of money. Good luck, everybody.